Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are taking on, well, a really complex analysis of a political figure whose career path isn't a straight line at all. It's more like a series of dramatic reversals.
You're talking about Candace Owens, farmer.
Exactly. Born in 1989, she's gone from a pretty much anonymous liberal to, I think it's fair to say, one of the most polarizing and visible conservative commentators in the U.S.
Yeah, our sources really confirm that complexity. They provide this dense, comprehensive overview. It's biographical, sure, but it's much more than that.
It's thematic.
It is. It's a thematic exploration of her major ideological shifts, her key affiliations, and maybe most importantly, the really charged viewpoints she's championed.
Which has led to some serious fallout, both legally and professionally.
Mm-hmm.
So the mission for you, the learner, is to really unpack this evolution. I mean, how does a person go from an early liberal identity to a leading conservative activist, seemingly overnight? We're going to distill the most significant and often contradictory nuggets of knowledge from this career.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Her formative years.
Right. Let's unpack the transformation.
We begin in Stamford, Connecticut. She was raised there primarily by her grandparents, and she has Caribbean-American heritage through her grandmother, who was from St. Thomas.
And her youth included this incredibly formative and, frankly, deeply traumatic incident in 2007. She was only 17.
Yeah, as a high school senior, she was targeted. She received 3 racist death threat voicemails from some white male classmates.
This wasn't a small thing. I mean, the school superintendent called the voicemails horrendous.
Yeah.
And to make it even more complicated, one of the perpetrators was the son of the mayor at the time, Daniel Malloy.
So the family, they took legal action. They sued the Stanford Board of Education, arguing the board failed to protect her.
And the lawsuit had a significant outcome.
It did, a $37,500 settlement awarded in January of 2008. So this is a very specific, very painful early life experience of targeted racial hostility.
And this is where we hit the first, I guess, narrative friction point. Because despite that experience, her initial career path, her early political views were consistently progressive.
Mm-hmm. She studied journalism, though she dropped out because of student loans. She worked at Vogue, a private equity firm.
And if you look at her writing from this time, before the big pivot, the contrast is just astonishing.
It really is. In 2015, she was the CEO of a marketing agency, Degree 180.
Right.
And during that time, she wrote columns that were overtly critical of conservative Republicans. She even specifically called out the batshit crazy antics of the Republican Tea Party.
And the site wasn't shy about mocking GOP figures, right?
Yeah.
There was an article in 2016 mocking Donald Trump's physical appearance.
Yeah. So given that level of, liberal commitment.
What was the catalyst? What triggered what she herself called an overnight shift?
It really comes down to a failed tech venture. In 2016, she launched a platform called socialautopsy.com.
Social autopsy.
The idea was to create a searchable database to expose online bullies by tracking their digital footprint.
Wait, exposing online bullies seems, on the surface, like a socially conscious idea. Why did that become her political breaking point?
Because it immediately drew just ferocious criticism from all sides, from the right and from progressives. They all condemned it as a public shaming list that basically encouraged doxing and violated privacy.
Okay.
So when she was doxed and targeted in retaliation, she didn't blame the nature of the internet or her platform's design. She explicitly blamed progressives for the harassment.
And this is where the Gamergate connection comes in, right? The sources really highlight this.
Oh, absolutely. Once she blamed the left, she started getting intense support from conservative figures involved in the Gamergate movement, people like Milo Yiannopoulos, Mike Cernovich.
People who were already fighting these online culture wars.
Precisely. Gamergate was, for the listener, this online movement that started as a critique of ethics in video game journalism, but it quickly morphed into a much broader culture war against perceived liberal influence.
Often involving harassment campaigns.
Right. So when Owens felt attacked, this group embraced her, and she embraced their politics.
And she stated the outcome herself in 2017. I became a conservative overnight. I realized that liberals were actually the racists.
And that was it. The site was suspended by Kickstarter. It never happened. But her political identity was completely reversed.
And that new identity launched her straight into the conservative activist world.
Mm-hmm. She started posting pro-Trump commentary, anti-identity politics stuff, and launched her Red Pill Black platform in 2017.
Her first big organizational role was with Turning Point USA, TPUSA, as Director of Urban Engagement.
A post she held from 2017 to 2019. That platform gave her huge exposure.
And she got high-profile support really fast. Then President Trump called her a very smart thinker.
She leveraged that momentum almost immediately. In 2018, she co-founded the BLEXIT Foundation.
Right, which was aimed specifically at encouraging ethnic minorities, especially African Americans and Latinos, to leave the Democratic Party.
But that launch became a source of intense drama right away.
The Kanye West situation.
Exactly. She claimed that Kanye, who she called a dear friend and fellow superhero, had designed merchandise for BLEXIT.
But the very next day, he publicly denied it.
Denied it completely.
Yeah.
He said he'd been used to spread messages I don't believe in. That's a huge public contradiction for a brand new movement.
Wow.
It was. BLEXIT continued, though. It eventually merged with TPUSA in 2023, and she kept building her media presence, hosting a show on PragerU, then moving to the Daily Wire in 2021 to host her own show, Candace.
And it wasn't just media. She also really leaned into the entrepreneurial side of this anti-establishment brand, promoting products that targeted her new base.
That's right. I mean, if you connect this to selling a brand, these ventures served a narrative. In 2021, she was all about the Freedom Phone.
The Freedom Phone, marketed as a device not controlled by Apple or Google.
Right. But our sources confirmed it was a white label version of a Chinese smartphone, the Umidigi A9 Pro, which sold for about $120.
So it was just rebranded with a massive markup as an anti-woke political statement.
Precisely. Another example was Glorify in 2022.
The anti-woke bank.
An anti-woke alternative bank she heavily promoted. It shut down that November. It just failed to secure funding.
So these ventures really highlight how her brand is just completely intertwined with commercializing political dissent.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's transition to the substance of her message, because this is where the rapid-fire controversies really begin. What are the core tenets of her rhetoric on race?
Well, her core argument on race is a rejection of the idea of systemic racism. Instead, she focuses on what she calls a victim mentality among African Americans.
She often uses the term plantation to describe the Democratic Party.
Routinely. And she's a very strong, consistent critic of Black Lives Matter. She's called protesters whiny toddlers.
She also makes some highly specific and widely disputed claims about racial economics.
She does. For instance, she stated that African Americans are economically worse off today than they were in the 1950s under Jim Crow.
And her reasoning for that.
Her rationale is that since the mid-20th century, the community has voted almost exclusively for the Democratic Party.
That claim needs immediate context. I mean, it is highly disputed by pretty much every economic historian who specializes in that era.
Of course. I mean, those experts point to institutionalized denial of wealth, voting rights, basic human dignity during Jim Crow, but her argument is focused on blaming a single party's allegiance, which resonates with her audience.
What's also fascinating is how she downplays white supremacy as a modern threat. She said it wouldn't even make her personal top 100 list of issues facing Black America.
Yeah, and that willingness to contradict academic and historical consensus goes even further. In a 2019 House Judiciary hearing, she claimed the Republicans' Southern strategy.
Which historians widely agree was a deliberate appeal to racist white voters in the South.
Right. She called it a myth that never happened. She's actively challenging established historical fact to fit this narrative.
Okay, moving beyond race, let's look at her cultural and social views. She's consistently critical of mainstream feminism.
Very. She embraces the trad wife phenomenon, advocating for traditional gender roles, and she openly called the hashtag #MeToo movement stupid.
Her stance on abortion is just as absolute.
She calls it a tool for the extermination of Black babies.
And on LGBTQ+ issues, she uses a very specific framing.
She does. She separates the issue into two categories. She accepts what she calls civilization, which to her means things like same-sex marriage.
Okay.
But she saves her strongest opposition for what she calls over-civilization, which, in her view, is the fight for transgender rights, bathroom access, sports participation.
And that was the basis for her call to boycott Disney in 2022.
And separately, her false claim that the Robb Elementary School shooter was transgender.
So finally, we get to her views on science and global issues. This is where her self-identification with leaving the cult of institutions gets really explicit.
Her claims here are among her most unconventional. She has stated that global warming is not real.
And the reason is?
She argues it's a lie manufactured to extract dollars from people. More dramatically, she's called science itself a pagan faith and has said she's left the cult of science.
Which is a complete rejection of institutional knowledge.
It is. And during the COVID-19 pandemic, her rhetoric was just as dismissive. She said she'd under no circumstances get any vaccine, called Bill Gates a vaccine criminal.
And she even jokingly suggested the U.S. should. What was it?
Invade Australia because of its strict public health lockdowns. That's a truly wild sentence to find in the source material.
It is. And this willingness to reject any established consensus, scientific, historical, political, it leads us right into the period of 2024 and 2025 where these high-stakes conflicts really began.
Yeah, starting with her very public departure from the Daily Wire in March 2024.
Sources say this was the result of months of tension, especially with co-host Ben Shapiro. But what was the final straw?
The departure was directly linked to a string of comments that were seen as anti-Semitic by her colleagues. The breaking point, according to the sources, was her publicly liking a tweet that referenced blood libel.
For any listener who might not be familiar, what exactly is blood libel?
It's a centuries-old, completely false accusation that Jewish people ritualistically murder Christian children to use their blood in religious ceremonies, especially during Passover.
It's one of the most inflammatory and historically destructive anti-Semitic myths there is.
And Owens liking a tweet referencing it was seen as crossing a line.
In the broader context here, her comments about Jews and Judaism is pretty extensive.
Unfortunately, yes. She claimed Joseph Stalin was Jewish and part of a cabal. She's promoted the Khazar theory, suggesting many Ashkenazi Jews aren't ethnically Hebrew, but descend from a Turkic group she called immoral and corrupt.
And that's a claim often used to deny Jewish people's historical or religious ties to the Middle East.
Precisely. And in August 2024, she made a direct and explicit reference to blood libel again, claiming that Leo Frank, a Jewish businessman who was lynched in 1915, had killed Mary Fagan as part of a ritual murder on Passover.
The external impact of this has been significant. She was named Anti-Semite of the Year by the group Stop Antisemitism.
A title she accepted celebratorily on her YouTube channel.
And even more chilling, she was cited in the manifestos of two shooters. One, the Antioch High School shooter, wrote that her views helped push me further and further into the belief of violence over the Jewish question.
Wow.
And moving away from that, she's also facing a major legal battle overseas.
Right. In July 2025, French President Emmanuel Macron and First Lady Brigitte Macron sued Owens for defamation in Delaware.
And this is over her persistent and very public claims that Brigitte Macron is a biological man named Jean-Michel Trogneux.
That's the one. Owens said she would stake her entire professional reputation on this. The sources also noted that even former President Donald Trump reportedly called her in February 2025 and asked her to stop talking about it.
Just a bizarre, highly specific rumor.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, we had the assassination of Charlie Kirk in September 2025, a tragic event that immediately pulled her into even more controversy.
Her reaction was swift and immediately conspiratorial. She started questioning the official investigation, implying, without actually stating it, an Israeli conspiracy.
She also accused the French and Egyptian governments and even members of her old organization, Turning Point USA, of being complicit.
And this prompted a very strong, very public, and just heartbreaking rebuke from his family.
His widow.
Yes. Charlie Kirk's widow, Erica Kirk, publicly condemned the theories. She called them a mind virus on national television and just publicly asked Owens to stop.
This event really crystallized the complete breakdown of her establishment conservative ties.
Completely.
But despite all of this, the severance from the Daily Wire, the Macron lawsuit, losing her Australian and New Zealand visas, she continues to thrive on her own terms.
That's the key takeaway. She currently runs an extremely successful independent YouTube channel, over 3.8 million subscribers as of early 2025.
And she recently announced a new media series on Harvey Weinstein.
On Harvey Weinstein, who she claims was wrongfully convicted of rape and sexual assault.
So if we step back and connect all these dots, what's the ultimate conclusion about this career trajectory?
Her career is just an intense study in contradiction. It's defined by this rapid, self-serving evolution from one extreme to the other. She has perfected the art of converting highly specific dissent into massive online reach.
And she seems willing to burn any bridge.
She has. She burned bridges with major conservative institutions like the Daily Wire, yet she remains highly influential and profitable because she just bypasses the traditional gatekeepers entirely.
Which raises an important final question for you, the learner. Given her ability to be so successful on an independent platform and her own declaration that she's left the cult of science and mainstream institutions, Does her career show a growing political ecosystem where trust is placed more in these highly individual, personality-driven commentators than in traditional media?
And what does that mean for how we define and seek out being well-informed in the coming years?
Something to mull over long after this deep dive is complete.